You know, on social media, there's Instagram versus reality. All right, my slides aren't going. All right, let's try this again. You know, on social media, there's Instagram versus reality. This was my family and me. Outwardly Instagram-worthy. Successful executive mom, stay-at-home dad, 4 amazing children, the perfect family. But in reality, our life felt like this. It wasn't Instagram-worthy, and things weren't perfect at all. As our 4 kids became teens and young adults, I saw potential and giftedness that signaled great things to come. Yet at the same time, with each passing day, I felt like something was off with my husband and kids. It felt like everyone else in my house was actively trying to make things way harder than they had to be. I felt so lonely trying to make our lives less effortful. Another morning with the entire house, all hands on deck, frantically searching for somebody's missing wallet or keys or homework assignment. Being assured by my husband that he was on it to do the taxes, only to find out later that nothing had happened, with no real explanation as to why. Lovely family dinners jarred to an end with the sudden realization of a deadline today for a class project that had been known about for months. It felt like we lived with surprise crisis after surprise crisis that all could have been avoided if they would just think ahead at all and learn from the past, and I didn't understand why they didn't. As a successful executive in human resources, I worked so hard doing what I do best to try to help. I find the root cause, I implement a plan, and the problem is solved forever. Yet all I can tell you is that what worked at work didn't work at home. Over and over I said, just leave earlier, just make a prioritized list, just have a place for everything. Always emphatically agreed to, and then ultimately ignored. All that, coupled with an amazing ability to do incredibly hard things with ease, combined with incredible potential that I saw in each one of them, something just didn't add up. The only conclusion that I could come to for what I was seeing was character flaws. They were lazy, undependable, lacked ambition, or worse, lacked integrity because they made promises they didn't keep. Honestly, it felt like me versus them. My whole job is to heighten potential, and in my own home, I couldn't do it. I felt like a failure as a mom and a fraud at work. Then came a moment that changed everything. Someone suggested ADHD. I thought ADHD was the stereotype of 9-year-old boys bouncing off the walls and squirrel, haha, funny. My understanding of ADHD didn't in any way explain what I saw. We're talking about family members who can write a term paper with top marks in one last-minute 12-hour marathon the night before with no breaks. Sure, there's a lot of choosing the least easy path, but attention deficit? Hyperactivity? Disorder? I didn't see any of those things. And then, one by one, I had a house full of people with an ADHD diagnosis, something I clearly didn't understand. I want to share what I've learned over this time in the last few years through the lens as a neurotypical, because I diagnosed what I saw as character flaws, and I was wrong. And I believe this problem is happening at scale in our society today. So, how do we get things done? Motivation drives action, which in turn drives outcomes. ADHDers have a dysregulation of the neurotransmitters that drive motivation, and we're born with a dysregulation of the prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center responsible for taking and maintaining action. Well, no wonder outcomes was a challenge. And this is a biological difference that they have no more control over than I had in being born a middle child. So what effect does this have on how their brains operate? At its simplest, neurotypical brains like mine are jump-started by what's important, what has priority, rewards, and consequences. I learned that ADHD brains are not jump-started by importance, but by interest. Their brains are wired to do whatever brings the best reward for their brain fastest. Basically, whether they find the topic to be challenging, novel, fun, or do or die urgent right now. And anything that doesn't fit the bill is boring. And boring is literally their kryptonite. Even if they agree with you that something is important, unless they find it interesting, it will be a real struggle to get their motivation and force themselves to do it. Importance brains like mine see the world as orderly, dependable, and in control. And the whole world is set up to be this way. And way across the full spectrum of human difference, you will find interest brains like my family showing up as the opposite. All over the place, inconsistent, and out of control. And that is how my home life felt. Being wired to have interest get your motivation instead of importance makes things that most of us find fairly easy, such as basic organization or being on time or listening or mundane adulting tasks, biologically much, much easier for me than they are for them, because they're important, not interesting. And being wired to be in the right now, they have a different sense of time. I sense all of time, the past, the present, the future. But their sense of time feels more like this. Being wired to be in the now explains why dire urgency right now is necessary to get them going, and why it's harder to take learnings from the past and apply them, and why it's harder to look ahead to the future and prepare for it. Think about how it would feel if your brain was set up differently than the rest of the world, making it supernaturally harder to get important things done, to learn from the past, and to prepare for the future. And what if that difference was invisible to everyone, including you? How awful would that feel? The consequences touch every corner of their lives. I had to ask myself, would people who are just lazy and lacking willpower choose all this? That was when it all clicked. They're not purposefully not getting it together. They're pedaling twice as hard to get half as far. And in my relentless attempts to help, I was making it worse because I was going about it all wrong for how their brains operate. Thinking of the children's toy where you have plastic shapes and you put them into a sphere. No wonder I couldn't get them in the square slot, no matter how hard I tried. They're a triangle. And if I push too hard, I will break the toy. But this biological difference comes with great benefits, including making things that many of us find hard easy for them. We just have to stop thinking through the lens of the importance world to see that they're not all over the place, but they can pivot, respond quickly, and embrace new ideas. They're not inconsistent, but they can focus on the sudden, unexpected things. And they're not out of control, but they are full of drive. All of that enables the passion and the ability to bring unique thinking that reveals hidden connections, to be flexible, resilient, and quick to master new things, and to be intensely imaginative and creative, which explains why things that were hard for me seem so easy for them. Our world is broken if we're not making it possible to get more of things like these. Imagine the amount of potential that's being held back from our world because of this mass misunderstanding. I want to change that. So what can we do to make things easier for everyone to, at the very least, survive and ideally thrive? The unlock is to stop trying to treat a triangle like a square. In my house, we call it being a brain friend. If hard things are easy and easy things are hard, then we work to make the things that are hard less hard. Because contrary to what it might feel like, they're not doing it on purpose. They're playing the video game in hard mode compared to everybody else. So we engage in a non-judgmental, curious, and supportive way to help hijack their brains to make things challenging, novel, fun, or do or die urgent right now. Concretely, when tidying up needs to happen, well, we make it a challenge to see who can do more in 20 minutes. If a paper needs to be written, we ensure that the topic that's selected is one that is very interesting. And we're always on guard to change up the current system for keeping organized for when it suddenly becomes boring, to keep things novel. And if doing the hardest thing first in order to get it out of the way doesn't work, well, then we do the simplest, easiest thing to get momentum. And I no longer tell my family that something is important to get them moving. I say it's urgent. This shift has made things in our home not perfect, but much, much better. So much so that together and with their permission, we wanted to share what we've learned. I want to be clear here, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. This is easy to say and really hard to do. In a world built for importance brains, this isn't the end-all be-all. But if we don't start to rethink some of this, we will fail to benefit from some of the world's most potent gifts. If we each choose to be a brain friend, together, we could bridge to a world that doesn't settle for embracing neurotypicals only, to a more inclusive place that recognizes each brain is different and enables everyone's gifts to shine. If we all do something, maybe we all win. That is what I'm hoping for. And at the very least, I can promise it will be interesting.